Good evening. Calling to order the special meeting of the Board of Education. Today is Monday, February 24th, and we are meeting at the Fordyce Building. Would you please stand and join me in the pledge of allegiance? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Call the roll, please.
Mrs. DeAngelis.
Here.
Mrs. Lysy.
Here.
Mrs. Sudar.
Here.
Mrs. Thomas.
Here.
Mrs. Van Ho.
Here.
All members are present.
Thank you. At this time, is there any public participation relative to the agenda? Seeing none, we'll move on to the one item of business that we have to take care of. Is that yours, or is that Steve? Is that yours?
I will take it.
Okay.
This is a resolution for approval, ratification of final payments of contracts as listed, and I recommend approval.
Thank you. Is there a motion?
So moved.
Moved by Mrs. DeAngelis. Second?
Second.
By Mrs. Thomas. Any questions or comments? Call the roll, please.
Mrs. Lysy.
Yes.
Mrs. Sudar.
Yes.
Mrs. Thomas.
Yes.
Mrs. Van Ho.
Yes.
Mrs. DeAngelis.
Yes.
Motion carries 5-0.
Thank you. And now we have some presentations. I'll turn it over to our superintendent, Mr. Bell.
Thank you, Madam President, members of the board. Happy to have two presentations this evening. You recall that we had to shift our board calendar due to some changes and all of that. So tonight we have two elementary presentations. We have a presentation from Shoreview Elementary, and we also have a presentation from Chardon Hills Elementary. And to introduce the team, I'm going to have John Schweitzer, our Assistant Director of Secondary Academic Affairs, come, and he will introduce Mrs. Thomas, who's the principal at Shoreview Elementary, who will then introduce her team. So, Mr. Schweitzer.
Thank you, Mr. Bell. Madam Chair, members of the board, Superintendent Bell, Mr. Bassick. It indeed is my pleasure this evening to kick off really the elementary presentations. We've had the secondary ones over the past couple of months, and leading the parade of elementary this year, because she got in and set up first. Smart. For Shoreview Elementary is their principal, Mary Thomas, who will introduce her staff and her speakers this evening, and they will then do their presentation about school improvement at Shoreview Elementary, and that will be followed by Mr. Paporis and his staff with Chardon Hills.
Good evening, Madam President, members of the board, Superintendent Bell, and Mr. Bassick. It is my pleasure to be here tonight to share with you the accomplishments as well as the plans for Shoreview Elementary's future. I am Mary Thomas, principal of Shoreview. I'd like to introduce Stephanie Boca, our assistant principal. Also joining us tonight are Amy Rosenbaum, literacy coach, Aaron Norton, math coach, along with other members of our school leadership team, Kathy Rich, Carrie Fortcamp, and Chrissy Gambatese, who could not be with us tonight. We are excited to share with you not only the accomplishments that we've made at Shoreview, but also our plans for the future. And the next two slides are the Shoreview vision and mission that were developed last year as our new staff came together. We took a lot of input from the staff, and this year, as the district is moving towards a new vision and mission, we too are working at developing a new vision and mission so that it not only aligns with the district, but also so that we can have more input from more of our stakeholders, our community members, parents, students, and as well as our teachers. To align with the district goals of student achievement, fiscal responsibility, and increased credibility, at Shoreview we are extremely proud of the A rating that we received for our overall value added. The state came out with new report cards last year, and the A rating and value added is proof positive to us that we are growing all students at every level. As far as fiscal responsibility, we look to our community partners for many different aspects, one being donations that they offer throughout the school year for incentives for our students, rewards that we can do throughout the school year, and also bringing some programming to our schools. We are extremely excited to be able to offer to our 5th grade students the dancing classrooms, which is partially funded by the Cleveland Clinic Euclid Hospital. We were able to do the dancing classrooms last year, and it was a huge success, so we're excited to be able to do it again this year. And then when it comes to our building budget, the bulk of our building budget falls into student recognition and student needs, as well as teacher professional development. Those are the two things that we feel are most important when it comes to growing our students and improving our school. For increased credibility, we are continuing to work with our community partners, as I mentioned, but also in different capacities. We have an increased number of community tutors as well as volunteers. These volunteers come from not only parents within the school, but also just community members. And we are excited because we feel like it gives people a chance to come into the schools, see what's really happening, and then go out into the community and share that with their family and their neighbors so that people can get a real sense of what's going on at Shoreview. The next several slides are the OAA, Ohio Achievement Assessment trends in reading, math, and science over the last few years. The yellow bars represent Shoreview scores from last year's Ohio Achievement Assessment. The red, green, and blue are compared with Upson. We are compared to Upson because we have adopted their IRN number. The majority of our students are former Upson students as well as some Memorial Park students. So when we look at the data, just so you know, we're not comparing it Shoreview to Shoreview because last year was, of course, our first year. We are extremely proud of the gains that our 4th grade reading was able to make with 83% passage. We're also very proud of the gains that our 5th grade reading made, over a 17% increase with our 5th grade. While we did see a small decline in our 3rd grade reading, we are continuing to work to foster that and show improvement in the 3rd grade reading. When you look at the 4th grade, the math trends, you can see that, again, we had a very nice increase with our 4th grade math, up to 66%, and our 5th grade math also showed an increase. And again, we saw a small decline in our 3rd grade reading, but again, those are things that we are continuing to work with. And 5th grade is the only grade level that takes the science assessment, so we only have results for 5th grade. And we did, again, see a increase with the 5th grade science, so we're pleased with that. And as I mentioned, the state came out with new report cards and different ratings within the different categories, and we are extremely pleased to announce that we received an A in all of the value-added categories, and we qualified for a rating in the overall, the lowest 20% in achievement, and students with disabilities. And the value-added analysis is a statistical method that helps educators measure the impact schools and teachers have on students' academic progress rates from year to year. It's not a comparison from, say, a proficient score to an advanced or an accelerated score. It's rather looking at that individual student and the gains that they are making. So a student may not have passed the test, but they have made gains from year to year. And value added is only calculated at the elementary level for grades 4 and 5. And again, like I said, we're extremely proud of it, and if you look at this graphic, it shows you that breaking it down for mathematics and reading, we had no teachers, 4th and 5th grade, there were 8 teachers last year, no teachers that scored below average in their value added. Most were at above average or most effective. And the composite is obviously a combination of both math and reading, and it's not necessarily an average of the two, it's a mathematical calculation, but we are extremely pleased to see that over 62% of our 4th and 5th grade teachers scored in the highest category, most effective. Along with the state report card, we use classroom and district-wide assessments to make decisions on how to improve student achievement. we go through what's called a 5-step process, with the bulk of our efforts focused on number 3, which is creating strategies. We use this process for many decisions that we make throughout the building, whether they be academic or building climate sorts of decisions. So it is that process that led us to the decision that we made last year for a commitment to year-long professional development with Mr. Joe Whalen. He is an international speaker. He is a former East Cleveland principal. He's also a Euclid resident, so he's committed to making Euclid successful. And the focus of his presentations have been differentiation and assessments for learning. He has presented for the entire staff at 3 half-day in-services in August, September, and February, and he follows those up with classroom visits. He committed to doing 1 classroom visit for each presentation that he made, but he's already been to our school, I believe, 5 times, and we have another scheduled classroom visit. He enjoys coming into the classrooms, and he sees a lot of promise at Shoreview. This was not only a large financial commitment that we made, but one that we felt was incredibly important. And we based that information off of our walkthrough data from last year, and we saw that differentiation and assessments for learning were an area where we needed improvement. So we continue to monitor how that's going by the informal walkthroughs that we do throughout this school year. I am going to turn it over now to Amy Rosenbaum, our literacy coach, to talk to you about reading. Good afternoon. Good evening.
This slide shows us AIMSweb pyramid on the left that we're familiar with of our second grade curriculum-based measurement. Passages were read individually by students to abstain of score. You can see from the winner pyramid, the one towards the left, that the green has, or the middle, I'm sorry, the green has grown significantly and the red has decreased a bit. It's good, but we would like to see better. We'd like to see that green really grow and the yellow go into the green and the red go away. So in looking at that one there, we will often use that to look at the whole grade level on a whole and see how they're doing. The data on the right, however, we like to use that for individual student growth. And the top 2 scores in yellow, the left side is the fall, the right side is winter, and the target scores, where we want the children to be. You'll see the scores that are in yellow, the children are not there. They are below the target score. So if we look at that first star, that top star, these 2 students came in below the target, fall target. However, they have grown significantly. On the right side, they have shown vast improvement, which shows they're in the white, so they are and have reached their target. If you look at the second star, the child came in at 16, put the child in yellow, and significantly below the fall target of 55. However, the score in winter still puts the child in yellow below the target. However, the child's number of words has doubled. So we really have to look at the individual growth of each child and gear our instruction accordingly. It's important to note that those students that reach a particular target or beyond, they continue to show growth. For instance, right between there, you'll see the 2 stars. There's a white figure, 64, I believe, and it's in the white. So that child did come in and at reaching the target. So we want to make sure that that child continues to grow, whereas in winter, he too has reached his target and has gone beyond. This data and informal and formal assessment data is closely looked at during teacher-based teams and common planning times. And the 5-step process is utilized and strategies are developed to ensure learning. The reading supports that we have in place at Shoreview. Ongoing Common Core training for Tier 1 instruction. As a district, we meet monthly with grade level representatives from each building to assist with the implementation of the Common Core standards. These groups are called cohorts. They work on designing assessments, develop resources aligned to the standards, then these educators will go back into their buildings and share with their grade levels within their buildings. Let me take a moment to define a couple terms. The Common Core is a rigorous set of standards for the English language arts and mathematics curriculum. Common Core was developed based on the best practices of schools throughout the world. These standards were developed to help ensure that all students reach college and career readiness by the end of high school. Tier 1 instruction. Tier 1 is considered the key component of tiered instruction. In Tier 1, all students receive instruction within a core program. All children receive, but those children in need of supplemental intervention receive additional instruction at the Tier 2 or Tier 3 level. Tier 2 consists of children who fall below the expected levels of accomplishment and are at some sort of risk of academic failure. Presently at Shoreview, we have 159 students being serviced in 3 and 5 day per week tutoring. These children are receiving that intervention based on their needs and or their response to a specific intervention. If something didn't work, then we switch it up a bit and try something else. The next 3 supports that you see there, the daily kindergarten flexible grouping, 5th grade kindergarten letter recognition and sound, literacy cooperative, these all have to do with kindergarten specifically. We are experiencing such a strong sense of urgency when our kindergarten students enter our front doors. Many of our kindergartners are significantly behind in pre-readiness skills. These skills include, but are not limited to, oral language development, the ability to answer and ask questions, letter recognition of at least letters within one's name, sound discrimination. There is already an apparent gap between where they are and where they should be. Because of this, we have strategically grouped students based on the pre-readiness skills that they come with. With careful and timely data collection, we are able to move students flexibly from group to group based on their needs and instructional practices. I would also like to add that this grouping in our kindergarten classrooms occur daily for 40 minutes of the 120-minute literacy block. So it's not beyond that 40-minute period. This innovative approach to literacy instruction allows children and the students to, at all levels, to achieve to their highest potential. We have found that this approach has inspired confidence in all of our learners. Along with this sense of urgency came an idea to empower our 5th grade students, our leaders, by having them peer tutor the kindergartners with letter identification and letter sound. This occurs 15 minutes at the beginning of the school day or 15 minutes during the first 15 minutes after lunchtime. The next support we have, Literacy Cooperative, is a group of volunteer tutors that work one-on-one with some of our kindergarten students 2 days a week. To save time this year, they utilized our testing results and our teacher input to service those students with the greatest need. The Lubrizol tutors, last, are being used to work with our students that are achieving at or above grade level to give them some enrichment activities. At this point, I will turn it over to Erin to talk a little bit about our math.
Good evening. This pyramid shows the results for 4th grade math at Shoreview from the fall and winter, as Amy had mentioned. In this pyramid, you can see the significant growth of the green for our 4th graders, which makes us happy. In the past, we've used a test that for the math assessment that was a math computation assessment, which only tested fluency. This is the first year we've gone to a math concepts and application assessment where, because we felt it was more comprehensive of what the students needed to be able to do in mathematics. So these are the first results of those. We use this data to help us decide how to group students and how to move forward with our students. It's just one piece of data that we use to help answer the question, is our instruction working? We also use OAA scores, readiness and end-of-unit assessments, exit slips, and other types of formative assessment. And the one other thing I wanted to mention about the pyramid is how we like to see the growth of the green and the decrease of the red, but we still recognize that the yellow is too large because for students who fall into that category, there is a 50-50 chance of passage. Then on the right, just like Amy had mentioned, there's this other graph that gives us a little bit more specific information about our students. I think it's a little bit hard to see the numbers here, but on the left-hand side, the target in the fall was 13 for the students, and the yellow indicates they did not meet that target in the fall. And this is just a snapshot of part of the fourth grade. And if you look at by the star, there is one student who in the fall came with a score of 4, which is well below the target of 13. And in the winter, that child only scored a 5, which is still well below the winter target, which is 15. So in cases like that, we need to look at that and see how do we need to change our instruction because something's not working for that student. But then at the same time, you have 2 4s in the fall that became 14s. Still below the target of 15, still showing yellow, but they've shown considerable growth. So we just like to show how we look more specifically than just at the whole pyramid at how we can actually use it to help our instruction and make decisions. The math supports that we have, just as Amy mentioned about reading, we have those same cohorts for math. One teacher per grade level, per building. We design unit instruction, readiness, and end-of-unit assessments. Through that process, the teachers are able to dig into the new standards. It's been very beneficial for the teachers that have been a part of that. They've really, it's professional development about understanding the standards, and by knowing the end game with these assessments, it ends up bringing up conversations about what strategies to use to get our students where we need them to be. And then they go back to their buildings and share with their colleagues at their grade level. Another way we're supporting Tier 1 instruction is through coaching. When I am working with teachers, we meet and talk about lessons and strategies. In some cases, we co-teach, and in others, we work on aspects of lesson delivery that needs to be strengthened. We have 16 students being serviced with Do the Math intervention, 4 third graders, 4 fourth graders, and 8 fifth graders during their intervention enrichment time. Do the Math is a 5-day per week comprehensive math intervention program for students who are behind in math or struggling with grade level concepts. The program focuses on number and operations, which is the cornerstone of elementary math. As Amy mentioned, we do have fifth graders partnered with kindergartners. They also work every other week on number recognition and formation. There was a high percentage of our students that could not recognize the numbers 0 through 10 or write them. And that's something they should be able to do before they walk through our doors. So that has proven to be a really good little program for both the fifth graders and the kindergartners. The Lubrizol Corporation has its world headquarters in Wycliffe, Ohio. They work in more than 100 countries. They have approximately 7,000 employees. It has been in the Euclid schools for almost 15 years, specifically at Upson and now at Shoreview. Volunteers range from administrative assistants to engineers to factory line workers and human resource employees. The Lubrizol tutors work with our higher achievers on math enrichment as well as the reading enrichment that Amy had mentioned. Now, Stephanie Boca is going to talk to you about climate.
At Shoreview, we work on climate every day with our interactions with our students. Teachers at Shoreview are constantly recognizing students' strengths and the positives. We start the day together as a whole group doing the daily pledges. We have fifth graders come down over the PA and do the Pledge of Allegiance at 8:30 sharp every morning. They go on to do the Shoreview Pledge and the anti-bullying pledge. By the end of the school year, every fifth grader would have had a chance to do this leadership position and lead the school with the pledge. We recognize students' positive behavior and their in the common areas, through showing that they follow the expectations and be leaders, be kind to each other. We award them with superstar tickets, and with those tickets, they can place them in a weekly, monthly, or annual prize drawing container, and we call them over the PA weekly and monthly. For the weekly ones that we call, they get a little short visit down to the library and pick out a prize. And for the monthly ones, they get to eat lunch with Miss Thomas or I, and we have a dessert with them. For the annual prize drawings, we make it an all-school assembly, and we're working really hard to get some donations from the community and from the staff to make those desirable prizes that the students would want to work for. We have Student of the Month, and the Student of the Month, they get their picture taken. They have a display in the atrium. It's beautiful. They also get recognized on our Facebook page. And through the building, it's a new building. It's we're trying to develop it and have it ours. We had the staff come up with their own leadership quotes and inspirational quotes in the beginning of the school year, and little by little we've been posting those quotes throughout the building, and there's an example of one. So we're trying to warm up the building and really make the building our building. We are working on an expectations video. We just actually did the last shooting today with Meg Somerville, who's our technology integration specialist. She's made about 4 or 5 visits for a few hours through the building since January to work on this expectations video. So it would be clear if we need to reteach, another teaching tool for students to learn the expectations. It's another positive behavioral support for new students that come in throughout the year. So we're excited that that project's almost finished. The Renaissance strategies that we've come up with this year to recognize students and staff are listed there. We just listed a few, but we know that we need to reinforce the behaviors that we want to see more of, both with students and staff. So some examples are, instead of just recognizing individual students, we have Jaguar spots that they try to fill up a poster and they work together as a class to earn these, and then we recognize them by doing random parades through the building. We'll call classes down, and the other classes will kind of clap them, and we get real excited about that. Instead of having just an annual award ceremony, we have a quarterly award ceremony that recognizes student achievement through Distinguished Honor Roll, Merit Roll. We've recognized Students of the Month at these award ceremonies, and also students that have perfect attendance and students that have not had any referrals. Ms. Thomas and I probably process up to about 20 positive behavioral referrals a week. The teachers write down a blurb, some are more extensive than others, turn those in our mailbox, we call them down, we also comment on those, we call their parents, we take their picture, we post their picture, and we also offer them a bag of chips, and we let them sit in our chair while they're getting their picture taken. They love that. We've recognized teachers at staff meetings, for example, in the beginning of the school year, the teachers that had the value added that was so high, we made sure that they were recognized and that they had something like a flower, just something tangible for them. We also are engaging in a book study to see if the leader in me, those strategies and that kind of approach would help our students, because we know that we have a lot of training with responsive classroom and positive behavioral supports, but we want to make sure that we're covering all the bases for our students. And sometimes they're coming to us and not realizing what choices to make. So this program is really about leading your life with the choices that you make. So we purchased books for the whole staff. They went home with them over the summer with the expectation that they would just bring them back in the fall, and we would have a whole staff book study. We look at a chapter or two once a month at a staff meeting, and we share out the big ideas from the book and how it would impact Shoreview. The 7 habits that the leader in me develops are listed: the be proactive, begin with the end in mind, put first things first, and those first 3 focus on the independent student, and the last 4 are more about working in a group and working with other people. How this has impacted some teachers that have went a little bit more than just read the book. They've actually implemented some of the strategies in their classroom. 2 teachers gave me a little, I guess you could call it their thoughts or their testimonial about it. And Mrs. Schultz, she's a second grade teacher, this is what she wrote. My students this year are showing more cooperation when working together. They are getting along better and are more aware of creating win-win situations. They are also more aware of each other as people as they are learning to show empathy towards others. I have also noticed students taking responsibility for their own attitudes and actions. The 7 habits have made a positive difference in my classroom. And Dr. Kindervater, who teaches first grade, she wrote a very long one. I'll just read you a paragraph. Many examples come to mind, but the most recent was being proactive. 2 boys had a dispute and were very angry yesterday at the lunch. Finally, one of them got up out of his seat and said to the other, "I want you to know how I feel. I don't like it when you bump into me." The other looked away to ignore the statement, but stopped. He looked at him and said, "I don't want to listen, but that's not a win-win. I won't do that to you anymore." Then they both returned to their seats and resumed work. So that's, just a couple examples of how it's affected the climate already. We developed these strategies looking at data as well with our climate, and we use a 5-step process. And this is the results from last year to this year with climate. I think last year is the blue line, and this year's referral data for this year is the green line. So we've just decreased referrals, I think about almost 20% this year, and suspension rates are down, I think, almost 20% as well. So on behalf of Shoreview, we thank you for your support and your time. And the last slide will conclude our presentation. It says, "Thank you, Euclid Board of Education." So on behalf of our team, I would like to thank you for listening to our presentation tonight, and I'd like to especially thank all of the members of our team who helped make this presentation what it was. And this is just a small little microcosm of what makes Shoreview such a great place to work. So our staff, our support staff, everyone helps to make it what it is. So if there are any questions, we would love to answer them.
Board, anyone have questions?
I have a comment. I think it's a great idea that you're using the Lubersol tutors to really address the kids that are achieving. I mean, it sounds like you're hitting every student in the school, and that's really commendable.
Thank you. We did that last year, and again, going back to our value added, I think that helped. We know that Tier 1 instruction is that's got to be in place, but that extra boost helps to move those highest achievers.
And also the flexible grouping in kindergarten. I mean, you've got to be a small group, one-on-one with those kids to make sure they get it. That's great. Thanks.
I just want, anyone else? Just one comment. You were talking about the pre-readiness skills, and that those need to be increased for the incoming kindergarten classes. Is there anything that the district might be able to do in terms of pre-kindergarten education or preschool education for some of these families that might be able to be identified early on? Maybe if they have a sibling that's in the 2nd or 3rd grade, and that they might have incoming siblings. Mm-hmm. If this child had a low readiness, the likelihood that a sibling might, is there something that we can do to reach out to the family to maybe help incoming siblings?
It seems very possible for us to do that, because we learn all about these kids and their lives and who's at home. And but I will say that Rashida Houston, who is the principal at the Early Learning Center, has been doing an outstanding job of helping prepare not only the students but the teachers for what's coming. And in fact, they have been working with kindergarten teachers to help kind of set the stage for this is what they're going to need to know. But I think that approach of kind of that child find that we look for in special education, we can look for it for preschool as well.
And maybe as a district, we might really need to start considering a pre-K program within, something to
a fifth grade or, a 5-year-old or even a 6-year-old, like intermediate kindergarten. We need to, as a district, maybe really need to start identifying or really making that a reality, because I think that would help.
Oh my gosh.
Help your job tremendously. Yeah.
Well, a high-quality preschool would help too, and if we could get some of the things that we need to get inside the preschools throughout the city, that would help too.
Okay.
Well, we are making an attempt to do that. We've
Yes.
had one big district-wide or citywide training on the new standards for home daycare and preschool providers. We had an outstanding response to that. We had 87 people attending. And we're planning through this group that we have of directors. It's just a group that we put together. It's the Eastern Cuyahoga County Early Childhood Network, and we are planning to do some additional training starting, and we're going to keep at it with the new standards training and some stuff through PEP. And so we are going to keep reaching out, at least through that organization, to help with that. And response to the home daycare providers was outstanding, because there's a lot of people who prefer home daycare providing, and they're willing to start helping to educate our kids. So
Can I just add one?
we're working on it through that group.
Sorry, Mrs. Sudar. Let me just add just a couple of things, Madam President, members of the board. One of the things that we've talked about is the fact that if we don't get a handle on early childhood education, it's going to make it very difficult for us to make the ground that we need to make. And one of the slides that you saw up here was reflective, and you saw the slide that had the yellow on one side and then you go to the other. When you first look at that, the tendency would be to count the number of what the improvement is from yellow to white, because you'd want to get them out of the yellow into the white. But what happens is that, and I'm glad that Aaron pointed out, really both of them pointed out the fact that you can have growth from yellow and to yellow within that and still not meet the target, but kids are still growing. So what happens, the same thing happens on our state report card. You have kids who have grown, and we've gotten 1-2 years worth of growth, but because they haven't met this particular target, it appears as if they haven't met the standard and where they need to be, which they haven't, but they've grown from where they were. So I think the point that I'm trying to make here is that as I've told many people, it didn't happen overnight. When you look at the third grade and where we are, that didn't happen in third grade. It happened as a result of what culminated getting to third grade. So what we're trying to do is to make sure that we really get down into the preschool, and I'm glad she alluded to what Rashida is doing down at the preschool. She's really doing a great work in trying to get families to understand the importance of that early childhood. So we're really working hard. Bottom line, working really hard to give the support, do what we need to do. The board has been very supportive in helping us to staff and do what we need to do, because that's what it's going to take. It's going to take good people to understand what happens to make everybody's job just a little bit easier so we can get kids where they need to be. So I think you're right on point with that, and we're going to continue to work to make that happen.
Does anybody know how many preschoolers we have in the Pikes program right now? Is it kids? I know
I think there are 90
students.
Yeah, but in a district with,
That's why we're talking 400 kindergartners. That's really a small number,
That's why
unfortunately.
when you mentioned about getting the parents, not just in the preschools, but, it's funny because the math coaches, we all just were talking about this, if there was some type of night we could have in, May or something where you invite parents of incoming kindergartners. Now, I know we sometimes don't get some that register until so late, but even as basic of skills as over the summer, have your child point numbers out to you, and if they could know their numbers to 10, they can count to 20, they can know their letters in their name, those basic things, even if you're not getting into all in-depth Common Core stuff, but just some of those basic things that could be part of their everyday life.
And that is starting with the kindergarten, members of the board, starting with the kindergarten registration that will start in March, and as we go through that is an emphasis, and really trying to make sure we know where kids are, because that early identification will help us to be able to place, you heard about the flexible grouping, where we need to be able to know how to differentiate, and what we're trying to do is reduce the differentiation gap to not be so far that we have to have so many groups that we have to split our resources. So that's definitely in our plan, and Sherelle is really working hard to make sure that we get as many families registered so we can get that information.
I think it'd be interesting if we could find out who has children that are here in the district in the first few years of their life. Because they need to know what they should be doing with those children, even at that age. There's just an article in the Plain Dealer that I was going to bring next month, and it talked about just talking to your children in regular adult language, even if they don't understand it, just for them to hear it, and that how important that is for them, and how much they'll learn just from hearing you speak normally. I think a lot of our problem is the parents don't know that what kinds of things they need to know for kindergarten, because maybe they didn't have that, maybe nobody's there to help them, whatever, but they need to start even before a four-year-old kindergarten. And we need to find a way, whether it's through doctor's offices or through some kind of other, maybe our own programming, where we invite people who have very young children and show them the kinds of things that they can do. But if we can get a good preschool program going, I'll really feel wonderful, because I know how important it is. Let me just give you a couple kudos that I want to reemphasize for the people who are listening at home, because we talk about value added, but people don't understand what that means. When the state gives their grades from A to F, they're saying that if you teach 1 year's worth of work in 1 year, you get a C. And if you teach a little more than a year's worth, then you're going to get a B. Getting an A means you have significantly increased and significantly taught more than a year's worth of growth in 1 year, which is a huge credit to the teachers, because that's saying it doesn't matter where that child came in. The teacher in the classroom has made that effort, because it wouldn't happen otherwise. So the teacher has made that effort to get the children up to that A level, to get more than a year's worth of growth. And the fact that you got it, not only overall, but that you got your lowest 20%, and you got your students with disabilities, that all of them are A's, is incredible. And I know how disappointing it is when you get your scores on these tests and they're not showing the growth that you want it, that you know is happening. But at least the state has a way of recognizing the fact that you guys are doing a terrific job. And I just want the public to know that if they send a child to Shoreview, that they're actually going to, the likelihood is they're getting more than a year's worth of growth in a year, and that is really important, because that's how they're going to achieve. The other thing, when you're testing on the math, first of all, your growing of the green was incredible, and I know how hard that is to do. With the new testing, instead of using the AIMSweb testing, and I do recognize, because I remember with the first year we gave that, I was helping with that. But are you using any word problems at all with the testing to see?
The MCAP was pure, fluency of facts, and the MCAP, the math concepts and application, it has, they're almost all worded problems of some way. So it's that they don't just know the facts, but they can apply them in a context.
This is something that also the public doesn't understand, is when they see math, they're thinking of the students doing simple addition, subtraction, and so forth, and they don't understand that it's word problems. And anybody that's anywhere close to my age probably had teachers who didn't want to bother teaching word problems because it was difficult to do. And so they didn't, they just kind of skipped those pages and concentrated on facts. And there's a reason, because you have to teach the concept and you have to teach how to figure out what you have to do. And that's very different learning than simply learning the facts. So it takes a lot to teach those concepts, and it takes a lot for the kids to learn. And need to make sure that people are aware that there's a big difference there. The other thing I loved hearing you say was the Pledge of Allegiance every day, as well as your Shoreview and your anti-bullying pledges. The reason I say that is because I can't tell you, probably at least once a week on Facebook, we get a thing that says, you know, how the kids don't say the Pledge of Allegiance anymore. And I keep wanting to say, yes, we do. Now at least I know I can really say it and be very accurate that yes, they do say the pledge. Because somehow people have gotten this idea that that doesn't happen anymore. And so I'm really glad to hear that it does. There's a lot going on in our schools that we don't get credit for, but I want you to know that we give you credit for what you are doing, and we appreciate it very much.
Thank you.
Thank you. Let's give them another round.
Thank you, Mrs. Thomas, Shoreview staff, nice job. Now, again, Madam Chair, members of the board, Mr. Bell and Mr. Vasic, I introduce to you Christopher Paporis, who will lead his team from Chardon Hills.
See, I love how these principals work together.
Madam President, members of the board, Superintendent Bell, Mr. Vasic. I'm Chris Paporis, principal at Chardon Hills, and I will present tonight on behalf of Chardon Hills Magnet School. Presenting with me tonight are Jackie Sturm, assistant principal, Becky Vasaski, math coach, and Terry Freeman, a literacy coach as part of our team, is here also this evening. The focus of our mission is a high-quality education, focusing on the whole child and citizenship. The key to our vision is for the community and the school to support each other. Our development team is currently working on specific definitions and how to measure the implementation of what we've defined as our core values. Students attend Chardon Hills from all areas of Euclid. Our demographics are similar to the district as a whole. We have 21 general education classrooms in kindergarten through grade 5. The gifted program is problem-based curriculum focusing on critical thinking and reasoning to encourage leadership and responsibility. The autism program follows a highly structured visual environment to help students enhance communication and reach independence. In grade 4, they are piloting the idea of each teacher focusing on one content area with each class adjusted based on student ability, similar to what they may do in a middle school. Tonight we'll talk about climate, academics, and community school partnerships. Our climate focuses on the development of the whole child and citizenship. Mrs. Sturm will present on climate.
Prior to school starting, we met with our Renaissance team to determine what we could do to motivate our students so that they would do their best and how we, as a school, could support that. Our first staff meeting at the end of summer focused on expectations both of our students and our staff. We decided to keep our minor incident reports as we had in the past. The teachers did note that they deemed effective in preventing and cutting down on office referrals. A small team of teachers and I took part in a therapeutic crisis intervention training this summer, and as a team determined that a method was necessary in how we a new method in how we approached our students with challenging behaviors. We provided a half-day professional development on interventions and strategies that would help de-escalate situations and equip our students with alternative behavior choices. We also gave our teachers resources to have on hand while in the classroom. Understanding why a child is displaying undesirable behaviors is essential. Teaching and modeling coping skills has proven to alleviate some repeated behaviors, as you will see later in the presentation. And we also provided strategies for our teachers to build rapport and establish relationships with our students. Our Renaissance team chose the theme for Chardon Hills for this academic school year. Data from the Renaissance Conference confirmed that results are achieved when we reinforce, reward, recognize, and respect students. So we sat down, got to work, shared our notes from the various breakout sessions we attended at the conference, and put several programs in place to showcase our students. And we started rewarding them for these 3 A's. For each of the upcoming slides, we broadcast each student's name on the announcements each morning, and their pictures are posted on our Wall of Fame as well as on our Facebook page. Make sure you like us on Facebook if you haven't already. Marco's Pizza generously supplies us for our monthly luncheon, and students eat lunch with the principals and receive Student of the Month awards. We showcase one student from each classroom and one staff member each Friday through our shout-out parade. Students in kindergarten through the 5th grade line our halls and congratulate our nominees. Children displaying excellent character are immediately sent to the office with a positive referral from their classroom teacher, and either Mr. Paporis or I call home immediately. Hat Day is homework attendance and tardy. 3 to 4 classrooms are visited randomly throughout the month at around 10:30 in the morning, and classrooms, or any class that has been found to have all of their homework assignments, no absences for the day, and no tardies for that day, are rewarded of 20 minutes of extra recess at the end of the day with me. At the beginning of the school year, we provided each of our teachers with the book titled "Have You Filled a Bucket Today?" by Carol McLeod. Students are acknowledged at the classroom level for positive interactions with classmates and teachers. Preston Panther, who is our school's mascot, visits a different classroom every day, and the children look forward to hearing on the morning announcements the next day who Preston chose for making amazing choices in the classroom. During our assemblies, 2 students from each classroom are chosen randomly for exemplary behavior in an assembly by their classroom, and it happens twice throughout each assembly. This is proven to drastically improve behavior and increase attention at such large gatherings. All students and staff are encouraged on Fridays to participate wearing either Chardon Hills or Euclid attire, and then the first Monday of each month, we all come dressed in college gear. So what have these positive incentives and ideas from the Renaissance Conference proven? Well, to start, a decrease in office discipline referrals. The slide here on repeat offenders, the column to the left displays the number of students for this school year, and the column to the right are the number of repeat offenders for the previous school year. And by repeat offenders, we mean those students who have received more than 2 discipline referrals. If you will notice, there were 7 repeat offenders in the kindergarten last year. There's a number next to it in parentheses. That indicates that 1 of those 7 students is a repeat offender as a 1st grader. One on which to take particular note is 2nd grade. Of the 24 repeat offenders from last year, only 2 of those students are repeat offenders as 3rd graders this year. Interventions take place immediately once a child has received more than 2 discipline referrals. Through a combined approach, we look forward to guiding our students at Chardon Hills and celebrating their successes all along the way. To us, it's imperative to have a positive learning environment that will set the stage for our students' success. And I'm going to give it back to Mr. Paporis.
Last year, 2013, that should be the 2012 12-13 report card. It was last year's data. Chardon Hills met state indicators in reading and in math in grades 3 and in grade 4. The first percentage on the slide there is the Chardon Hills results. In parentheses is the passage rate for similar districts. The similar districts category is defined by the Ohio Department of Education. Grade 4 also outperformed the state averages in our passage rate. It is a credit to Jen Redford, Nikki Johnson, Crystal Vidra, and Mary Green on their work last year with grade 4. Here are our results for grade 5. And Chardon Hills did meet the 1 year of expected growth last school year. Our goals for this year are to meet all the indicators in math and reading, to increase our science scores by 10%, and achieve more than a year's growth in the value-added measure. The winter benchmark is a statistical snapshot. The red, as I show in the triangles in a moment, indicates students that need intervention. Yellow are students that have a 50% chance of passing the OAA. In green, they're above target and should pass the OAA, statistically speaking. In the upcoming graphs, triangles that are similar from fall to winter demonstrates a growth rate similar to the national rate. This is because as the year goes on, the target increases. In kindergarten, nonsense works, which is the data to the right, is first scored in the winter, so there's only one triangle there, but that does indicate a solid foundation for reading. This chart has both literacy to the left and math to the right. This does not mean we regressed, but it clearly indicates we didn't keep up with the expected growth. The teacher collaboration process with the support of literacy and math coaches is digging deeper into these results in planning our next steps. The same is true for grade 3, which is upcoming. Grade 2, the 34% gain in mathematics is noteworthy. There's grade 3, grade 4, and finally grade 5. Statistically speaking, taking all of the green and adding half of the yellow will give a probability of how Chardon Hill students would perform if the OAA was given in January. We have the opportunity to still close the gap when the OAA is actually given in the spring. Once again, this is statistical probability. For grade 3, now please note that the actual OAA was given in the fall and will be given again in the spring. We scored 50% in the fall, and our data now proves that we've already made a 10% gain since that point to the winter. There's our 4th grade data and our 5th grade probabilities. In addition to our school culture, our professional focus includes the following items: core instruction, guiding questions, our step 3 of our collaboration process, intervention and enrichment, and tutoring. The key to our success is to improve in every classroom and use a systemic approach throughout the school. When we talk about core instruction, the objective is more specific for each lesson than just stating the standard. The use of formative assessments, both in planning of lessons and during the lesson itself, places emphasis on student learning. Understanding students' backgrounds, experiences, and learning styles. This combination of responsive classroom in the Renaissance culture. Critical thinking not only shifts because of the Common Core, but it also keeps students engaged in learning. When done well, students lead the learning and the teacher takes the role as a facilitator. And in differentiation, teacher matches strategies, materials, and learning pace to the individual needs of the students, which directly ties to our critical questions, which are: what do we do with children that understand the first time? What do we do when children struggle to understand? And how do we know what we are doing is actually working? Improving the core instruction from the previous slide is part of the puzzle. The other part is improving our collaboration process. The 5-step process This year, we are focusing specifically on step 3. That is to create a clear objective and strategies. I'll briefly take you through the process. The Mastery Connect gives us the most recent data on student achievement. Student names are along the left side, and the standards are in blue across the top. These scores of red, green, and yellow are the most recent assessment of a child's progress. From this point, this is an example of a 6-question assessment that fills the chart from the previous slide. The teams use this data in step 2 to determine our strengths and obstacles. For this particular collection, they've zeroed in on question number 2, where we see 45% of the kids struggled with this. In this case, we also determined that that standard is KCCA3, if you see it right underneath the question. The team then pulls that specific standard to look specifically at the standard. And this chart represents step 3. Note, that's the standard on top. The guiding questions are, what do we do for the students that didn't get it the first time? That would be our Group 1 students. Our Group 2 students are students that need to work beyond the proficient level. Determining our outcomes and creating that clear focus. In this case, for Group 1, it asks the question, what does the standard require of all children? For our second group, what will the students in Group 2 learn beyond what the standard requires? The level of critical thinking is next. And the question we ask here is, what does the standard require? And in this case, the teachers determine that it is remember. For our second group, they have raised the level of Bloom's to understand. The next step is to the best fit instructional strategy, and in this case, practice was deemed the best strategy. We follow it by determining our activities, which is still part of our development, is really defining these. But for this chart, the teachers indicated that the intervention and enrichment is the period to deliver either intervention instruction or enrichment instruction, and they will do that in a small group setting. As mentioned on the previous slide, we do have a support period built into every day. We call this the intervention enrichment period. We often use our collaborations to support this instruction period. Dr. Vaslewski will now present on targeted tutoring support.
Teachers, tutors, and coaches carefully examine our AIMSweb data, and collaboratively they select students for targeted tutoring support. This is a breakdown of the numbers. There are approximately 100 students receiving intervention in either math or reading tutoring support. Since our goal is to have these students close the gap between their score and the scores of their peers, the target reflected in the graph is twice the expected growth. Once again, the goal is to close the achievement gap. The green indicates that students are either on target or exceeding the target of twice the expected growth rate. The blue indicates that the growth of a student is below the target of twice the expected growth rate. Students that are pulled for tutoring are closely monitored for progress. This graph shows an example of a particular student who has advanced out of the tutoring intervention. This decision was made because of where the students score, as indicated by the red dots, fall in relation to the black line, which is the target line for progressing at twice the rate of improvement. Not all students are released from tutoring. This graph shows the progress of a student who needs to continue with the tutoring intervention. In this case, the student has clearly benefited from the intervention, but the lines indicate that it would be a disservice to pull the intervention at this time. In the last example, the data is showing that a student is not progressing at an acceptable rate with the current tutoring intervention. This particular student is being referred to the intervention assistance team for special needs consideration. And Mr. Paporis will now conclude the presentation.
Academic summary. Our goal, once again, is to meet the state indicators in math and in reading and increase our science scores by 10%, and to achieve more than a year's of expected growth. Our professional development centers on core instruction this year, and we have taken systemic approach to other areas of our school. We also realize the importance of school community connections. The PTA is an enormous support to Chardon Hills. They do everything we ask. This past winter, our students participated in a service by collecting canned foods for the Euclid Hunger Center and making and delivering blankets for Euclid Hospital. Tim Bauer, a Euclid graduate and a grandparent of one of our students, was our guest speaker at the Veterans Day Assembly. Here's a list of some more of our community school connections. We also reach out to our families. Chardon Hills believes that our success is only possible with the support of informed families. And here are some examples of things we try to do to keep our families in the loop. Another area is contact with outside groups that use our facilities. For example, our homeowners association are now using our buildings monthly for their meetings. That's both the Chardon Hills Community Association and the Sherwood Forest and Friends Association. Callie Boylan, the school family liaison, is a great asset to Chardon Hills. Her student supports include groups on bereavement, new students, leadership for males and females, and students with family members that are incarcerated. She also supports Chardon Hills with other responsibilities and programs like Peace Week. In summary, we believe we are set for a strong remainder of the school year. We feel the combination of our positive school climate and the Renaissance culture, our focus on core instruction, guided by our specific questions, as well as our further development of systemic approaches. We also feel that we have growing school community partnerships that will only help us in the future. Madam President, members of the board, Superintendent Bell, Mr. Vasic, this concludes my remarks. Our team will now entertain any questions.
Are there any questions or comments? Goodness.
I do have to say, I agree with you and your PTA. They are really amazing.
They are a good group.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Anyone else?
Sounds like you're doing a great job.
Just want to make one comment really to both, that both principals and teams, I thought, did a great job in the preparation. I know it took a lot of time for them to put together the sequence and to put together the context to the presentation. So I just want to tell them from me that I really, on behalf of the board, that really appreciate the time and effort that it took for you all to put this together. I know you worked hard during your calamity days to make this happen, and really put together, I think, a very, very strong representative presentation of your schools. And I think you've given us a very good indication as to the work that's going on behind the scenes. So I really applaud your efforts and thank you for what you've done to show what's going on in your various buildings. So thank you very much.
Thank you.
I just, number one, I want to congratulate you on working on de-escalating situations, because you see in the news various school reports of things happening at buildings and so forth, and every once in a while you sit there and you say, where's the common sense? Where's the person who's in charge who de-escalates the situation instead of adding to it? And that's so critical, especially as the adults. That's what we need to show, to demonstrate for them as well. So I really applaud you for recognizing that that's an important thing to learn about and to do. I'm going to have to look up that book, Have You Filled the Bucket Today? That sounds really cool.
Would you like us to send you a copy?
On your repeat offenders, you talked about, the 24 students in second grade last year that had more than 2 referrals and that there were only 2 repeats this year. But the other thing is that there's only 1 student this year that's had more than 2 referrals so far in there.
From that group.
Oh, I'm looking at...
Grade group?
No, not the 2. I mean, just the total for this year, you only had 1 second grader.
Just trying to give you kudos, Jackie.
Overall, you had a reduction, of in every area, but the fact that you only had 1 student in second grade that's had more than 2 referrals is really good. I also thought your goals for this year are great. I think that they're achievable, and so I wish you best luck on that. I do appreciate receiving the similar district information because I think that that's at least putting some perspective to the situation that we're looking at. Your AIMSweb for second grade math is absolutely terrific. Your red is barely visible and the yellow is hardly there. I mean, I'm really looking forward to your third grade next year to see how well they do. And so overall, I just think that it sounds like you've got, a good track record, but you're really focused on what you need to do to improve and do even more for your kids, and that's what we're all about, and I appreciate all your hard work.
Thank you.
Okay, let's give them an applause. Okay, is there anything else to come before the board, Mr. Superintendent?
No, Madam President, members of the board, that concludes our presentation.
Okay, Mr. Bassett, do we have anything else?
We do not.
Okay. At this point, then, I'll take a motion for adjournment.
I so move.
Moved by Mrs. DeAngelis, second.
Second.
By Mrs. Lysy. Call the roll, please.
Mrs. Sudar.
Yes.
Mrs. Thomas.
Yes.
Mrs. Van Hoen.
Yes.
Mrs. DeAngelis.
Yes.
Mrs. Lysy.
Yes.
Motion carries 5-0.
Thank you. We are dismissed.